This is a session about collaborative learning, and it's a process that we use in GIS on a routine basis for most of our classes. And we thought it might be helpful for you to have a chance to be able to visit with some of the things that we do in each of the classes. In this case, it's GIS 165, which is project management. And so today we're going to be working with a simulated project team. And the problem that they're going to be working on will be an enterprise GIS system for the city of West Sacramento. So we'll set the scenario up for you. This will be a typical meeting for which a project team would be engaged. They might be in completely different cities at the same time, and hence they would use a media like GoToMeeting, which we'll use today, and also be able to take advantage of a remote in the cloud set of project management software. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a collaborative learning exercise for us. It is the synchronous session collaboration, and the reference textbook from which these techniques are described and itemized is Collaborative Learning Techniques by Barclay, Cross, and Majors, 2005, John Wiley and Sons. That's a copy that you can take a look at and certainly helpful. We'll be referencing structured problem solving from chapter number 16. The collaboration environment. What we're going to do is to demonstrate a course collaborative learning using online resources in two parts. One, Citrix GoToMeeting connects students to each other independent of their location. We happen to have in the classroom a total of 5 people who will be participating in this call actively, but we could have 25, we could have 100. The size of the meeting, of course, determines how manageable it is in terms of collaborative process. And a cloud-based project management software called ACE Project that enables collaboration independent of time. In other words, team members can participate without having to be together at one time. Each student has a computer in this scenario in the environment connected to the internet. The computer uses a microphone and a speaker headset. Citrix GoToMeeting is a software as a service. It's in the cloud, connects students to each other, and then students log in to use Citrix GoToMeeting software as a service to connect to each other. Then a cloud-based project management software called ACE Project allows students to collaborate on project development, project documents, schedules, and costs. Here's the scenario we're going to be working on today. The city of West Sacramento, California, wants to create an enterprise geographic information system. This is a hypothetical problem. It's one, in fact, did get solved in reality several years ago. The class team will perform a needs assessment to determine how to create the system to meet organizational requirements. In the collaboration, team members will develop their plan of execution. It's not instructor-led. It's led by the students themselves. And we have role-playing going on. We'll have an active project manager who is a student playing that role. And then we'll have students who are project participants who will investigate police, public works, parks and recreation, and information technologies for the city of West Sacramento. So in order to perform this exercise, the collaboration components are needs and solutions. And in this particular case, we're identifying the needs of individual departments for a geographic information system. Those include those listed here, which is information technology, community development, fire, grants, parks and recreation, police, public works, and redevelopment. And we'll consider in this session a small subset of this group. So the collaboration components, next steps. We're going to be evaluating proposed solutions, select the approach, implement, and finally assess outcomes. In today's session, however, we're going to focus on being able to provide the individual department components. So let's begin our discussion with the subject areas that we were going to consider. I'll introduce the project manager to you, who is Christy. You'll know them by their first name, and ask Christy to talk about the organization of the project so far, and then what information we need to gather. Do you think we need to gather? Go ahead.
Okay. So we divided this project up into various departments and assigned teams to each department for the needs assessment. In this initial stage, we are looking for each team to present a proposed budget, and that also includes the amount of time that it will take for them to do the needs assessment. Today we're just going to touch base with the police, public works, Parks and Rec, and looks like IT, city office, just to get an idea of what your progress is so far in terms of putting together a budget and time, and kind of how you're approaching doing those tasks. So I guess we can start with the police department, and that would be Anna.
Okay. My partner wasn't here last week, so I have not had a chance to consult with him on whether I've done this in a reasonable manner, but I can tell you sort of what my thought process was. First, I looked at costs that not direct costs, so other than direct costs, and these included things like the flight to go out to Sacramento to visit with the police department there, hotel, car, and meals. And so I went online and I kind of just researched, and this was a quick thing. I went onto Orbitz and I checked for the cheapest flight that I could find to Sacramento, and that was around $378. Hotel, I also went online and I looked for what I thought was a reasonable business type hotel in West Sacramento, and I came up with the Ramada. That was nice and cheap. It was a total of $60 a night. So for what I planned to do was to spend 2 nights there, which would be a total of $120. I also went online and I checked how much it would cost to rent a car for 3 days. $39 a day was $117 total, and for meals, I went with a per diem of $30 a day. I know that's what my husband gets at his work, so I figured that was probably reasonable. So the total for one person to travel to Western Sacramento would be $705 for the other than direct costs. Then for direct costs, I divided it into a few different areas. I thought we probably needed some time to create interview questions, and I'm assuming that there are some interview questions like boilerplate questions that we could just fine-tune. So I'm not talking about starting from scratch. I just mean kind of looking at questions that already exist and fine-tuning them specifically for the department that we're going to be interviewing. So I figured 2 hours would be reasonable for that. Then I thought when I looked at the flight information, it looked like I could get a morning flight and arrive early in the afternoon. And so I just estimated a total of 6 hours for travel to West Sacramento. That would include getting to the airport and arriving at the location there. For interviews, I budgeted a total of 16 hours. The reason I budgeted that amount of time was I went into a website for City of West Sacramento and checked out their police department, and it looks like, from what I could find out, it looked like there's at least 10 different divisions in the police department. So I figured I would need time with each of the individual divisions to find out what their specific needs are. I figured an hour per interview for each division. And I included 6 extra hours because I know how it goes when you get there. you can't always coordinate everything exactly when you need to do it, so I budgeted 6 extra hours so that we could make sure we got all of them done. So I was figuring we'd start the interviews the first day that I got there in the afternoon and then have a full day the second day and some time in the morning before I had to leave that following day, so hopefully that would be enough time. Return travel, I again budgeted 6 hours, and then I budgeted 8 hours to take all the information that we'd gotten on the interviews and to write up the needs assessment. And then I figured we'd need some additional time with follow-up phone calls. Maybe they would have some questions and things that they wanted us to redo. So I budgeted an additional 4 hours for that. So the total number of hours I budgeted was 42. As far as pay rates, I was figuring it would be sort of a lower level type person. I didn't figure it needed to be anyone that was particularly important asking these questions. So I figured about $25 an hour for the person who actually goes out to West Sacramento. And then I figured the person who remains back here could be a $20 an hour person. So then I did the multiplier the 3 times. So the total would be $2,970 when you multiply by 3. So my total amount was $3,675.
Just a question for clarification. Are you assuming 42 hours for the person that flies to Sacramento and 42 hours for the person that stays?
No, that's total. That's everything.
Okay, so that includes both people.
Yep.
Okay.
So the $2,970 is the total amount.
Okay. Okay, and then next we have Chris with Public Works.
Well, what we did was pretty similar. We started out by determining how many people we were going to have to talk to, and in order to do that, we went to the website and looked for a staff directory, couldn't find one, so we just kind of went through the Public Works Department's section of the website, looked at what the different divisions were, what kind of tasks and such they handled, and then tried to get an idea of how many people might be working in that division and how many of those people we might actually have to talk to. Obviously, we don't really need to talk to the individual technicians, but some of the managers would be more important. Once we kind of went through the list, we came up with about 12 interviews. Decided we could probably get the information we need in about 30 minutes per interview, and that gave us about 6 hours to do all of the interviews that we need to do. We also came up with a couple of extra things. A survey that would be sent out prior to the interviews that would get us some background information and get them thinking about what kind of questions we would be asking in the information or in the interviews. And then we also need to compile all the information from both the surveys and the interviews, and then we've got to assemble all that information into the presentation that we're going to get back to the city for the need assessment, at least our portion of it. Once we kind of got a rough number of hours for all that, we've got 3 people on our team, so we decided how we were going to divide those hours up and who was going to get paid what and how much and who was going to do which tasks, and I'll run through that in a second. And then, of course, we had to figure out our travel costs and how many people we were going to send out and that sort of thing. So we decided that we were going to have basically 3 staff members. One was going to be kind of a project management level guy. We're just going to go billing rates. We're not going to look at hourly salaries here. But our project manager is going to be at about $75 an hour, and our 2 technicians are going to be at about $50 an hour. And for the survey task, and that includes basically as a company, we assume we're going to have a survey that we've done this more than once. We've got kind of a list of questions. And so we sent that out ahead of time. And to compile that information, we're looking at about 8 hours total, 4 split between the 2 technicians. The interviewing is going to be the project manager, and we're looking at about 16 hours there, which is essentially 2 days. We're figuring a morning for travel interviews the afternoon, interviews the following morning, and then travel back to the office. And while the interviews are going on, the information is actually being continuously sent back to the office. So the two techs are already starting on working on compiling that information. And we've, again, split them up kind of evenly to about 6 hours apiece to do that. And then on the third day, when the PM is back in the office, everybody gets together for an hour to make sure that we've got all the relevant points together and do our couple of slides for the presentation. So in total, just for labor, we're looking at about 39 hours and $2,375. As far as the travel costs, we didn't go through the effort of actually looking stuff up online. We just kind of ballparked it on past experience. About $300 for airfare, $120 for hotel, $70 for a car, and $60 for meals. And again, that's basically one overnight trip. And so since we're sending our project manager, it's a little more expensive. $550 for the actual travel costs and a little bit more for the labor of doing that. So our grand total was just under $3,000.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Next we have Ashley with Parks and Rec.
Sorry, starting out, I'll clarify that we were also kind of thinking of more collaboration as well in traveling. I have some preliminary questions before I go through some of the things that I'm going to talk about, and that is just kind of our timeline on the needs assessment. How are we going to deal with that? When does that need to be done by? And then also going into how we could or potentially collaborate amongst departments while we all go and interview. So for Parks and Recreation, I'm just going to kind of throw our budget out, and this is just for the one person that is going, and that'll come to, for us, we decided with travel and expenses, will most likely come to about $3,000, maybe a little over. Again, we laid it out the exact same way that everyone else did, accounting for airfare, hotel, meals in the car rental, and cost of labor at about $30 per hour for whoever goes and does the interview. And our schedule would look like, we figure a full day of traveling. I know someone mentioned 6 hours. Prefer not to start in the afternoon, in my opinion, just because it'd be nice to kind of try and get everything done in one day and not bounce back and forth. So we planned on a full 8 hours of interviews for the next day, and even that it can be pretty flexible. We want to spend about 4 hours minimum with the actual Parks and Rec department, figuring out what they need, but also trying to talk with information technology and facilities and kind of see their roles in how they factor into Parks and Rec as well. And that's maybe something that we can talk about collaborating amongst each other after we all do our interviews. Maybe that would be a way to go about it versus having to put forth that extra time for our department to go interview those. And then we'll also plan for another full day of travel if that 8 hours goes as expected. So 3 days of travel total, sending just one of our people from our department there. And again, at a budget of about $3,000.
Okay, so do you have an estimate of, okay, so you've got 8 hours. Did you put together any estimate for labor costs?
That's what my cost of labor would be, about $30 an hour.
Right.
And then with the multiplier, so about $90 an hour to go out there. And so factoring in about 8 hours at 3 days of travel, 24 hours, so that's a little over $2,000.
Okay, but you're not, that doesn't include time to compile the data and stuff, right?
Okay, I did not realize that that was part of that. We did create a schedule for that, but again, I'm more concerned about what everyone else's timeline are. So I guess I'm confused about when this needs to be done by, so that we can have a good schedule set up.
Okay, we can address that eventually. And then last we have Tim with IT.
Well, as far as scheduling goes, we took the schedule hours on the beginning date. We started that Monday. So on June 9th, we started this project with 3 hours of making an initial assessment, trying to make contact with the IT department in Sacramento, sending them an email questionnaire, asking for their wish list and what they would want. So between the 9th and the 14th, we're going to give them a week to return that questionnaire. And then, excuse me. And so on the 14th to the 6th, or wait, this is both the 14th, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing. So once we got our hours back, our evaluation answers, I'm sorry, we would decide if we needed a personal visit, if that was even necessary. And then if there is a necessary visit, our visit's going to be fairly short. We're thinking flying out, mid-afternoon, meeting in the morning, following morning, and then returning later that following day. Our travel agent is good. It's significantly lower than the other fares we heard. We're at like $325. We're only sending one person, and we kind of felt like we wanted to be there for a short period, meet with just the IT staff, and then create a report around that, and if necessary, meet with all other departments and find out what their IT needs were. So basically, from the time that we collected all of our information to get it back to the project manager, we gave her about a week. Would that be enough time, do you think?
I guess we would have to evaluate that eventually, but it seems like it would be adequate to compile that information.
Yeah, so then on the following week, we had a follow-up call with the IT systems administrator for 2 hours. And at that time, we would be able to dial in certain needs. So as far as total cost, we're at 27 hours, and the labor cost of $30 an hour. The multiplier of 3, it's $24.30, plus $745 in expenses.
Does that $745 include the $325 for your travel?
Travel, and then it looks like a per diem, and this column got cut short. So
Okay. Okay. I think that's all the information we need for now, so thank you for attending the meeting.
Good. So this is an example of collaboration. It's a business-style collaboration where people would come together online from any location, share the information as they develop it, share it with each other during the meeting, and then be able to ask each other questions and gain new knowledge as they perform the project. The next steps in this process won't be done today, but would follow on with evaluate proposed solutions, costs, to adjust them appropriately, select a preferred approach in each case, and then the money gets spent when we do the implementation, and then finally a feedback. In the collaboration process, we always want to assess the outcomes. I hope you've enjoyed that session, and we'll be able to let you enjoy it from here. Thank you.